There we go. So welcome to Ref Stockholm Color Intro. My name is Nicole Coyle, lead educator for Ref North America. And what we're going to be going through today is Ref Stockholm Color. We are going to be doing a slightly abbreviated session as to what might be in person, but this is a wonderful opportunity for you to get to know Ref Stockholm Color, all the offerings that we have from our permanent color cream, soft colors, our two powdered lighteners, our direct dyes. So you are going to be getting a lot of info today. I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. And also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Otherwise, you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask anything live as if we were having a color class together. So welcome to color. Something that's very important to us at Ref Stockholm is the health of hair and how our coloring product works with the biology of your hair. So we have two very special ingredients that we have infused into our color line to make it a healing hair color line, because it really truly is. I believe our line echoes our care and styling line by in the fact that it's reparative, protective, and restorative. One of the ways that we get that is through our strengthening quinoa protein system. We call quinoa the keratin of nature, and we know that our hair is made out of keratin. So it's always important to reintroduce keratin or protein into our hair to keep it nice and strong for beautiful results in hair, because we do believe that beautiful hair starts with healthy hair. Quinoa not only has the ability to add protein and help strengthen our hair strands, but it has many other benefits as well, such as it is a high shine product. It has the ability to hold on to moisture. So when we're talking about overall appearance and health of hair, keratin is such a wonderful, powerful ingredient. So we have chosen to utilize it in our protein system. The other ingredient that we have that is very special in our color and helps it to not only perform amazingly, but also feel wonderful during and after the color process is our utilization of aloe vera. Most of us recognize aloe vera as being a very soothing, natural ingredient. You know, if you would get a little burn, you would break a stick of aloe vera off and rub it on your burn, and it would immediately soothe it. Well, we're using those same soothing properties in our hair color, and here's how that translates. So when we're talking about comfort of hair color, whether we're processing permanent color creams or going on scalp with powdered lighteners, the aloe vera really does help soothe the scalp to make for a really comfortable processing experience. Aloe vera also goes beyond just soothing properties that we think of. There are very high moisturizing properties within aloe vera, and it also helps to reduce inflammation. So if you have any guests that tend to be a little more sensitive on their scalps, our use of aloe vera really does make Ref Stockholm Color so comfortable for everybody during the hair color processing. When we talk about ref products, a lot of the time we'll use the phrase nature plus science. And the science part is very, very important, because here is where high performance comes through, and you will see that with the difference of Ref Stockholm products. So we will be talking a bit about pH and how it affects the hair. When we're talking about a healthy hair strand, the pH of our hair should be between about 4.5 to 5.5. We call that the acid balance state of hair. When we go lower on the pH scale, that is where it's more acidic, and the higher we go up on the pH scale is more alkaline. When you have products that are extremely acidic, that's when we tend to lend to more of a damaged melting effect. And when products are too alkaline, specifically on the hair, that's where we can get into snapping and breakage effects. So this is just a nice little visual to kind of put on your barometer where pH is. So when it comes to Ref Stockholm products, we've talked about how our shampoos and our conditioners are perfectly balanced for the health of hair. Our shampoos are a 5.5 pH and our conditioners are a 3.5 pH. This is going to help prevent protein and moisture loss and also aid with color retention and help prevent premature aging of our color services that we're providing. So when we're talking about ref color, though, it's also important to understand the science of why our color works so well. And there's many factors, one of them being their pH. So we have very specifically designed the pH of all of our coloring products to not only be the best for vibrancy and pigmentation, but also for longevity. So this is a big thing when it comes to pH and how color ages, right? Some people call it fading, but I really call it color aging. And there's many different things that can age color. So to help protect against that, having really balanced pHs that work with our hair for that nice pigment longevity is very important. So we'll see that our direct colors and our color boost masks both sit at a 4.0 pH. And then you can see where our soft color and permanent color cream lies. Especially with our soft color, this is very important because this is where we get the very long-lasting results from our soft color line that does have the semi to demi-permanent capabilities on it. Moving forward with our developers, because the previous slide showed the pH scales and that was unmixed. So, we'll show you exactly where our developers are. So when we mix, that really does balance out the pH of our permanent color creams, our soft colors, as well as our blonde ID high lift and our blonde balayage powdered lighteners. So again, these pHs are designed very specifically for the best performance and longevity and health, because that always is important to us, of how the hair is going to be affected during and after the color processing service. So we're going to begin today by talking about our permanent color creams. Our permanent color creams come in a whole variety of shades. We have 94 shades plus 9 boosters. We are 100% vegan, very proud to be. We have less than 2% ammonia in our color as well. So we do have an ammonia-driven permanent color line. And I always say, there's nothing wrong with ammonia. It is a naturally occurring ingredient in our own bodies. But where we find with hair color is a lot of manufacturers overdo the amount of ammonia that they have in their color. And this can have adverse effects on the client and the performance of hair color. Well, we've taken the nature plus science, specifically the science part, and we use the least amount of ammonia needed to ensure the permanent capabilities of our hair color, because it's the ingredient of ammonia that really is what helps permanent color actually be permanent. Another thing I'll draw your attention to is we'll talk about again once we see our color wheel is the natural olive green base of our color. So every color manufacturer's base has a color to it. So we have chosen olive green because it's neither cool nor warm. We want it to be a very neutral base shade color line. So you don't have to rely on us being a little too warm or a little too cool. Color lines that tend to be a little warm, sometimes people think of them as light, and color lines that tend to be very ashy in their base, those can be deeper shades or darker color lines. We want it to be as neutral as possible, so that's why we've chosen our olive green base. That being said, just because our base is olive green doesn't mean that it's going to have any actual effect when it comes to neutralizing or enhancing underlying pigments. That is just the base of our brown coloring and all of our naturals. Our 60% dye load is one of the amazing reasons, along with pH, that we get such perfect opacity with our color. When we're talking about opacity throughout this segment, we're going to be speaking to the fact that every hair will be looking exactly the same, right? Every hair is colored and covered exactly equally, so that color is coming through opaquely, whereas the opposite of that would be sheer or translucent, where the colors appear to be a little more see-through. So we are really proud that we are able to cover gray 100% of the time without jumping through too many hoops, and we will be addressing gray coverage later, but a lot of that has to do, again, with our 60% dye load. This means that 60% of each tube is actual pigments. And the other 40% are the other beautiful ingredients that we have to make our color work. We are a gluten-free color line, and we are a very gentle color. And again, always focusing, especially with permanent, on maximum gray hair coverage. When looking through our classification methods, this is how we talk about our color. So we do use the international numbering system. So we have your basic levels 1 through 10, 1 being black, 10 being extra light blonde. We do have a coloring series in our permanent color line called our 12 special high lift series, or our 12 series. This doesn't mean that we have a level 12 that we're actually able to achieve lightning wise. That is just the number that we've given to our high lift tint series. So that will be our 12 series. When we talk about tonal reflexes in our color, what we're speaking to is the actual tonal values that you will see or are in each color too. So I'll take you through those just to make sure we're very clear. So anytime you have a tube that's a 0.0, that would be a natural. So a 6.0 would be a natural dark blonde level 6. In our series, we also have intense naturals or double zeros. These were designed to be an additive or a booster, if you will, to help increase with resistant gray coverage. And one thing I will be very intentional about during this whole time is making the clarification between regular gray coverage and resistant gray coverage, because most hair that's gray can be covered not treating it in a resistant way. So the intense naturals were designed for resistant gray coverage. These pigments are going to be double pigmented, which means they could appear a little bit deeper in level. Anytime you see a 0.1, that is our ash. Our ash lends itself to the blue-green world of the color wheel. 0.2 is pearl, which in our world is a violet blue. 0.3 is a gold, which is a yellow-orange, YO. 0.4 are our coppers. Those are our copper series, which will fall into an orange-red. Our 0.5s are red-browns. Also, people think of them as mahoganies. That's how I always think about it. And those lean into the red-violet realm. And then our 0.6s are beautiful, pure reds. It's important to understand on the color wheel where ref colors fall, because we are aware that every manufacturer's tonalities fall in a different spectrum on the color wheel. So for expert mixing and for you to get the results that you and your guests are looking for, it always is important to really understand where our tonality reflexes lie. And here they are. Perfect representation. I always recommend to, whether you have it on your swatch book or a printout that you have up in your back bar, to have a copy of the color wheel with the ref pigments on there, especially during mixing times. Not only can it be a creative tool when you're trying to come up with your custom formulas, but it also is a great reminder for newer ref users to remember exactly what tonalities fall where on the color wheel. Because again, expert mixing is in formulating is something that we want to make sure that everyone is able to do. So if I can draw your attention to the 0.0s on the very far left-hand color wheel, you can see that our naturals lie in the olive green section, which is right between green and yellow, right? So that is really actually a neutral color that is neither cool nor warm. You'll see our double natural 003s, because they have a little bit of gold, which is the 3, is going to be a little bit more into the golden realm. So you can see exactly where all of our naturals lie. And then moving forward over into the right-hand color wheel, you can see every single shade in our permanent color line, including our new shades. Some of you might be noticing our Ash Pearl collection on there. So when it comes to formulating, you know exactly what to use in order to enhance or neutralize the appearance of a specific tonality. Understanding underlying pigments is really one of the backbones of expert formulation and getting the shade that you are looking for, right? So I always find it helpful also, along with the color wheel, to have this gentle reminder of a chart in the mixing area so we can really clearly identify what tonalities we need to either enhance or use to neutralize in order to get the desired results we're looking for. This is most important when we're talking about lifting, right? Anytime we're going from a darker shade into a lighter shade, we're going to be lifting the hair, which therefore exposes all the underlying pigment. Some of you might be calling it natural remaining pigment, but they're all the same thing. And then you will see on the chart to the very right, all the neutralizers, exactly what it will take to neutralize that underlying pigment. Our color ratio chart, in my opinion, is one of the most important charts to understand when we're talking about expert formulating, specifically when we're talking about gray coverage as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through the color ratio chart. We used level 7 as our example, but this speaks to all of the different shades in our permanent color line. So when you grab a tube of 7.0, you can be sure that 100% of that pigment is going to be level 7, and that's it. No tonal reflexes added to that. It is just your natural base level 7. Same goes for our intense naturals. So if you grab a tube of 7.00 or 5.00, you can be sure that 100% of that pigment is the intense natural at that level that you've chosen. Now remember, these were designed to be used as additives or boosters to help increase coverage for resistant gray hair. When using 00 shades, it can appear a little bit deeper. Some people think it's perfectly on shade, and some do find it to be a little bit deeper. So we just want to let you know, because it is an intense, your shade may look a little bit deeper when utilizing the 0.00s. Let's get into our pre-mix shades, because this is where it's going to be important to understand what is inside your tubes. So for example, right here, we have a 7.3, which be a level 7 gold. This translates to any of our colors that have a natural level, a decimal, and then one number behind it. So it could be 7.3, 6.1, right? Any shade that is a level decimal and then one number behind it. So what this means is, in this dye load makeup, 50% of the shade is going to be level, and the other 50% of the shade is going to be the tonal reflex, which in this case is gold. This is important because when we're talking about gray coverage, it depends on how much gray somebody has to how we would expertly mix to give them the look that they wanted. If we put a 7.3 on a head that only has about 25% gray, you could go in with a 7.3 and the whole head, depending on what your actual formula is, would look exactly the same around the 7.3. If somebody had 100% gray hair and you put a 7.3 on their hair, it wouldn't really look like a full saturated 7.3. That is because on that guest, there is not enough natural level to actually visibly support that level 7. So in these instances is where we would add some naturals, which we'll get into that a little bit more later, to make sure that your end result of the 7.3 is actually showing through. Moving on, anytime we have a shade where it's a level, a decimal, and two different numbers subsequently right after the decimal, those premix shades are going to contain 50% natural level, 30% primary reflex. So the primary reflex will be the first number that we see after the decimal, and the secondary reflex will be the second number we see after the decimal. So in this example, it is a level 7 golden ash. I call it beige as well, right? So in this instance, you're going to have 30% gold and 30% ash. This would translate also to 6.23, 5.12, 7.43, any of our numbers that are level, decimal, and then two different numbers. This is important because it's nice to know what exact amounts of tonal reflex are going to be showing through in that premix shade. Again, not only just with gray coverage, but to make sure that we have enough tonal reflex present to either enhance or diminish the appearance of any tonalities that we do or don't want to see within our final result. Any levels that you will see a level, a decimal, a 0, and then two other numbers. So for in this instance, 7.036, these shades are going to contain more level. So they're going to contain more natural level. In these levels, or I'm sorry, in these shades, we're going to have 70% natural level, 20% of our primary reflex, and then only 10% of our secondary reflex. Because what happens is that 0 is in that very first placeholder, right? After the decimal. So 70% will be shade, and then only 30% of this total dye will be the tonal reflex. So when we're looking at a 7036 and we know that there's only 10% red, we know that that red is showing up as just, I call it a kiss of red in the formula. It's not going to dominate. It's not going to overpower. It's just going to give it a nuance into that beautiful chocolatey shade. And again, this translates for any level or any shade that is decimal, 0, and then 2 color reflexes after that. Moving into our Bahayas collection, which is our intense naturals with a gold reflex. So any of our 003s. These were also designed to help ensure resistant gray coverage for our guests that need it. So in these shades, in our Bahayas collection, you will see 90% of this shade will be our natural level, while 10% of this shade will be the gold reflex. Now, previously I stated with our 0.00s, these shades were intended to be boosters or additives into a formula to help ensure resistant gray coverage. This is also true for our Bahayas collection 0.003. What's different about our Bahayas collection, though, than our regular intense naturals is because of the presence of that 10% gold reflex. These shades are beautiful and reflective enough to stand on their own should you choose to use them alone. The 0.00s were not intended to be designed to use as the standalone base color in a formula, but because of that 10% gold reflex, there's enough tonal value in there that the color will not look too flat, will not look too drab, and will definitely catch a lot of shine because of that gold. Another area where we really specifically use the 003s on resistant gray coverage is when we're using any formula where we are doing more vibrant shades. Think of bright coppers, reds, more enhanced gold tones. If these are some of the end results that we're going to be working with our resistant gray coverage, then 003 will be the choice you want to make as your additive into your formula. Our intense colors that I love, so you will see a natural level, a decimal, and 2 of the same numbers, okay? I think of these as more of our intense tonal colors. So 744, 811, 566, 922. All of these shades contain only 25% level and 75% tonal reflex. So that is why I call these our more intense or vibrances when it comes to tonalities. These are what you're going to incorporate to more of maybe your fashion colors, your very bright pigmented colors when we're thinking of violets, reds, and coppers. Or if we're thinking about maybe our 2 2s or 1 1s, we are looking to really diminish the appearance of warm tonalities that might be popping through. So for these shades, it's important to remember that there is only 25% level. So if we are working with great coverage, we need to make sure that we're compensating with some natural to be added into that formula to make sure we're getting the perfect opaque coverage that we're looking for that level. Again, this is a chart that I highly, highly recommend that we keep very handy at the back bar, especially for all new ref color users, so we can really remind ourselves exactly what is in each tube, so our shade level comes out exactly how we want it every single time. When it comes to developers and processing, we have a variety of options depending on the level of lift that we are going for our particular guest. So permanent color cream, we can use anywhere from 6 to 40 volume. We don't have different developers for our soft color and permanent color lines, so it's very easy. You will be using the same type of developers for both lines and also with our powdered lighteners. So we would utilize 6 volume if we're going the same level, darker, or we're using permanent as a demi-permanent glaze or toner. Processing time will vary with 6 volume depending on our usage. Are we doing a light toning service, or are we trying to actually do a very full deposit? So depending on the level of, or I'm sorry, not level, but depending on what action we are doing, processing time will vary anywhere from 5 minutes, which would be a minimum for a toner, all the way up to 30 minutes for a full deposit saturation. Because we're using permanent color, our standing mixing ratio is always 1 to 1.5. When we're working with 10 volumes, we're doing same level, we're depositing darker, or we are lifting one level. Now, something that a lot of colorists are not used to doing is using 10 volume to cover gray hair. And that is something very special with ref, that when we are talking about, when I say normal gray hair, I mean non-resistant, so not wiry, not very coarse, normal gray hair, you can absolutely get 100% opaque coverage with just 10 volume. And actually, for longer lasting, more beautiful color that ages less, using the lowest volume possible is always going to be the recommendation. So if I'm going same level, I'm depositing darker, or I'm only going up one level, we can choose 10 volume with our formula and we will get 100% gray coverage. Processing time would be 30 minutes. 45 minutes for gray hair, or if you are getting to be a little resistant and there's not a lot of gray, you can still use 10 volume. Standard mixing will still be 1 to 1.5. 20 volume is when we're lifting anywhere between 1 to 2 levels. If somebody has truly resistant gray hair, we do recommend you can go ahead and use 20 volume, even if you're going same level on level or depositing darker. And this is just to ensure that that resistant gray hair covers the same as all the other hair. Same processing times, definitely 45 minutes for resistant gray hair. 30 volume is when we're going up 3 levels, and processing can be anywhere between 30 to 35 minutes. And then 40 volume we utilize when we are lifting 4 levels, and processing would be the same with 30 to 35 minutes. The only time in our permanent color line things get a little different is when we are working with our High Lift 12 series. Our High Lift 12 series is designed to give you up to 5 levels of lift using permanent color cream. Now, with our 12 series, these are designed to be used exclusively with 30 and 40 volume, and processing time is 50 minutes. Here is why. So the wonderful utilization of our high lift tints is we are lifting and depositing tonality at the exact same time within the entire process. But what happens with high lift tint is the first about 40 minutes is lift, 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 lift. Because again, this is high lift tint. We're able to go that extra step and lift it even further. So that first about 40 minutes is lift. Where you're going to really see that tonal reflex deposit is in the last 10 minutes of the process. So if we should rinse any color early, the color isn't fully developed and processed, so the tonality might not quite be where you want it to. So that's why it's so important when processing ref Stockholm permanent color that we do follow the processing guidelines to ensure that your color is processed exactly where it needs to be for the desired result. The other difference between our High Lift 12 series is the mixing ratio. So here's where you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck when utilizing our High Lift tints. Is the mixing ratio for our 12 series is 1 to 2.5. So that would be 1 part color cream to 2.5 parts of your developer. So this means when you're mixing, you might want to start with a little less color cream than you usually do with your formulas, because you are going to be adding more developer. Now, when it comes to high lift tints, a lot of us think about utilizing them on blondes, and there's more detail we can get into it another time about high lift tints, but really, and taking natural brunettes to give them beautiful caramel toffee colors, High Lift 12 series is a beautiful tool to utilize for them as well. not just blondes. Prepigmentation is when we are tinting back to natural, or maybe not, we're tinting back to natural, but we are tinting down levels and we need to refill the hair with missing pigments that aren't there due to lifting of the hair. So for instance, if we have a summer blonde that wants to go to more of a natural shade for fall or winter, these are the recommended formulations that we have depending on how many levels you're going down and what level you're going to. The most important part of prepigmentation is to make sure that we are replacing any missing underlying pigment back into the hair. Therefore, our final formula doesn't appear muddy, shallow, and you're able to really see those pure tonal values of your end result coming through. So that is the whole goal of our pre-pigmentation chart, is to replace into the hair what it is naturally would be missing to support the new color that's coming through. What's really great is we do have really 3 new offerings in color classes for in-person education through our global education guide this year. So anytime you do participate in salon education or education at any education center by ref that you might go to, we really do dive in a lot deeper in a hands-on setting, things like prepigmentation. So if this is something that you've ever been interested in learning even more about, diving deeper and really getting your hands into it, those are hands-on options that we do offer in salon or in any experience center or Ref Academy location. So let's talk a little bit about gray coverage now, because this is very, very important, specifically when talking about permanent color, because I would dare to say that most of our permanent color comes from the need for gray coverage after a certain point. So one thing Ref does really well, like I've explained, is opaque gray coverage. So that doesn't mean that you have to have opacity as an end result for every formula. If you're looking for a little sheerness, if you're looking for a little variance between the gray hair and the natural hair, that's fine as well. We will just make sure to guide you so you understand how to achieve that perfect opacity every single time. And that is what all of our gray coverage charts will lend themselves to. So for gray hair in permanent color, we still stand by the 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio. When we're talking about really great gray coverage, usually we'll be utilizing 10 or 20 volume to ensure that gray gets opaquely covered. For normal gray hair coverage, we use 0.0 as our natural additive should we need to add more natural into a formula. For instance, if somebody is about 25% gray, 30% gray, and we are going to be using a formula that, let's say, is 6.23. Because in that formula, there's only 50% level. In order for the gray hair to look exactly the same as all the regular pigmented hair, we need to add a little bit more natural in there to make sure that that gray hair comes up looking like an actual level 6. So for that formula, we might utilize a little bit of 6.0 into the formula to make sure we get that perfect opaque end result. Depending on the amount of gray they have in the hair, you will want to up the amount of natural that you have added in. Again, in further classes, we take a much deeper dive into gray coverage and how to expertly formulate every single time for it. But this is more of the concept of we have our premixed shades, and then for that perfect opaque coverage, we want to be sure that we're utilizing the appropriate natural to get that tonal and level saturation. If somebody has resistant gray hair, this is where our 0.00s and our 0.003s will come in. Because they are double natural pigments, they are going to give an extra little dye load into our formulas to ensure that that resistant gray is covered every single time. We still stand by the 1 to 1.5 color ratio with 10 or 20 volume. Now, also, depending on the amount of gray, whether it's 30% or 100%, that will also help you adjust the amount of natural that you may want to have in your formula, depending on your desired results. So now we're going to together look through some of the beautiful shades that we have. So here are all of our Ref Naturals from levels 1 to 10. In our swatch book, in our paper color chart, or in any PDF version that we have, if you see a little dot next to any of the shades, such as 10, 8, 6, 4, and 1, those dots denote that those shades are available in Ref Soft Color as well. So our soft colors do exactly mirror our permanent color line. So we have all of our natural 0.0s. We have our intense naturals, 7, 6, 5, and 8. I'm going to move those around a little bit, so we'll go in order, but those are our levels. Let's say we have a resistant gray coverage guest that is a level 3. And as you see, we don't have a point or a 3.00. So here's what we would want to do for those guests that we don't either have a 00 to utilize for their shade, or oops, maybe we ran out of our 7.00 at the back bar, but we still have a resistant level 7 that we need to address. Another way we can achieve resistant gray coverage is also taking our formula 1-to-1. This concentrates the formula to make it a little stronger, as if we were making our own intense natural. Therefore, we can still achieve that double natural gray coverage for resistant gray hair. Our beautiful ash colors. So with our ashes, remember those fall in the blue-green realm. We have all the shades available. If you're wondering, well, I'm noticing in soft color, because of where the dots are, that you don't have some shades available. Well, really what we have done, and I think it's quite brilliant by Ref, is we have shade skipped. So a couple reasons for that is, number one, we are able to create any shade in between the colors that we have available by mixing the colors together. Also, aside from that, we are aware that we are also using plastic as our container for soft color. So we want to use plastic as little as we can. So by concentrating the amount of colors that we have, we're using less plastic. And also in the back bar, it takes up way less space, which I know a lot of our salons and studio owners are very happy about, because they can still have full shade range, because they can custom mix their shades, but not take up all this space together. Would you go, I have a question, I'm going to read it out. Would you go 1-to-1 before adding a 00 to the formula? So if this is for a resistant gray formula, and if I have a 00, no, I'm going to stick to my standard 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio, and I'm going to utilize my 00. So that will be always my number one go-to when you can. For those shades that we don't have 00 available, or in your salon, if you don't have that particular shade, then you can go 1-to-1. But great question. Thank you so much for asking. So here are all of our ashes, and then our cool ashes. These are beautiful at controlling unwanted warm underlying tones that may be in the hair. And I will say this too, especially, and I know we really haven't gotten into soft color yet, but using these as glosses or toners, even on natural hair that tend to start yellowing out, they're really, really beautiful. And you don't have to be afraid. I have a lot of people asking me, do I need to be afraid of the level of ash that are in these because of maybe experience with other brands? And with ours, I call all of our tonal reflexes very polite. They are not scary. Our color is non-progressive, so you don't need to watch it. All right, because in rinse it off at a certain point, they're non-progressive, so they will only go as far as they're designed to go. So you can rest assured with that when it comes to processing. Being an oxidative color, don't let the color of the oxidation fool you. Our beautiful goldens are 0.3s. I will say, as far as golden shades, they are absolutely stunning. And I call our golds very specifically polite golds. They are not brassy. They are not harsh. They add such a beautiful softness and shine into the hair. And I know, especially here in North America, we utilize a lot of champagnes and beiges. We're getting real into these warm colors, even in the wintertime. So make sure that you start experimenting more with your 0.3s, because they are a beautiful additive into formulas. Our highest collection, here are our 003s. So again, these were designed for a resistant gray coverage because of that 0.3 that's in there, that 10% of gold reflex. These are beautiful as a standalone base color or low light by themselves as well. I love our woods. These are some of our most popular pre-mixed shades. Our coffee collection, absolutely wonderful. The just slight hint of that red brown and that slight hint of the red that we have in there is what really makes it chocolate. It's what really makes it coffee or toffee, some people call it, because you do need the supportive little bit of warmth in these shades to make them look full-bodied and well-balanced. Our Saharas, you can also think of these as our beiges, all right? So with these colors, these are a golden ash, which make, at the end of the day, a beautiful beige type of color. They are some of, especially when it comes to soft color, some of the more popular toners that we are using right now because it gives that beautiful balance between warm and cool. Our copper collection, I really appreciate our coppers because we have the ability to look very natural. And sometimes it's very hard to achieve a natural copper that looks like it could be growing out of your head. But of course, we have the ability to intensify it, make it super vibrant, very poppy. So whether you are looking for something on the more muted natural side or the intense side, you can formulate a copper to suit your and your client's desired results. Our reds truly are very beautiful. And what's great about them is you also have the mixing capability to take your red, turn it into more of a copper red, or even to a red violet. So because of the red that we do use in our shades, you have full capability to be able to shift the exact tonalities to where your or your client's end result is lying. We will get into boosters also. We have some beautiful boosters that really help punch up our reds, our coppers, and our violets. Our gorgeous mahogany. So those would be our red browns. You can think of them like red violets as well. Our pearls that have been out are intense pearls, our double 2-2, and then our 2-6s. I think when it comes to soft color toners, 10.21, I know here in North America, is one of the biggest reaches for our colorists to create that beautiful, wonderful, balanced, bright blonde. And then, drum roll, we have our new Ash Pearl collection as well. Right now, we do have the permanent shades available in North America, but don't worry, the soft color ones will be coming later in 2025. So here are our Ash Pearls. You can take a look at the levels. We have a 712, an 812. So we have our Ash Pearl. And then we have our pearl ashes, where our pearl is the primary reflex in our 821 and our 921. These are absolutely gorgeous. We are toning with permanent as well. So even though we don't have them available at soft color, when we're utilizing permanent in 6 volume, these do become glazes for permanent toning. So we can absolutely begin utilizing them for our new toner formulations. Now, our 12 series, I believe, is one of the most underutilized tools in the ref color world. Not only are they great blonding tools that add a lot of variance because you get the opportunity to really customize your blonde and your formulas more than just lifting with lightener. So yes, they're absolutely beautiful creating blonde shades, specifically on levels 7 and above. Natural level 7 and above, but I love utilizing high lift tints as well. Remember, it's with 30 or 40 volume, 1 to 2.5, in darker shades of hair as well. If you have a natural level 4 and you take, for instance, a 12.1 with 40 volume on the natural level 4, it will lift up to 5 levels. So when we're doing our counting, right, it might not get all the way to a level 9. It might look more like an 8 because of the ash value in it, but you will get this beautiful kind of caramel toffee looking color that's a highlight that's going to be gorgeous. And the beautiful thing about high lift tints is it's lifting and depositing that tonal value in the same process. Whereas when we pre-lighten hair and then put a toner on top of it, that toner will age out a little bit faster than the tonalities in our high lift tints. So when we're talking about longevity of tonal reflex, specifically when we're doing lifting, high lift really is a beautiful option for that. Also, some of our guests are some of our stylists that we like using base bumps or base breakers with. The 12 series is an option for that as well, to give that little bit of buffer when we're just trying to, like I said, buff out that natural hairline a little bit. Boosters are what make Ref Stockholm Color 100% customizable for every guest. We have our beautiful premixed shades, but with our boosters, you can create so many more variances, so many more customized colors that really the options are endless. So the boosters are designed to enhance or neutralize the presence of a tonality in that formula, right? So let's think about it like this. If you have two guests, right, and they're both a natural level 6, and we're going to be lifting them to a 7, right? And one has really thick, coarse hair, and one has really fine, thin hair. And we put the same formula on them. Are they going to look exactly the same? No, they won't, because of the different texture type and density of the hair. The appearance will be different. Well, what if I wanted them to look exactly the same? Well, this is where boosters would come in, for you to be able to add your booster to a particular formula to make the appearance of it your desired result. We use boosters to enhance, so thinking about making your reds pop more, your oranges more vibrant, bigger, brighter golds. We can also use them to diminish the appearance of a tonality, like the warm colors. I don't want to see red in my hair. It's too golden. It's, too rusty looking. So then we can utilize those ash shades into our formulas to really get the end result where we need it to be. When considering which boosters to use, I would say recommend using the booster where that color would live on the level world. For instance, you see we have a pearl and a violet. Violet will live more in the darker levels, 6 and below, whereas pearl I would utilize in some of the lighter levels. All right, so they're both violets in base, but the pearl is going to be a little more gentle for those brighter shades. So, levels 9, 10 specifically, where violet will be work a little better in those darker shades. Same thing when we're talking about the ashes. Silver, we love utilizing that in the lighter shades to add that ash or that smoky value to it, whereas the blue and green we utilize a lot and the levels where those colors would live. For instance, green lives where red would live because green neutralizes red. So if red would be present, we would want to use green. If orange is going to be present in the hair, we would want to use blue, and so on and so forth. How much booster do I use? Well, we give you some guidelines because as a ref colorist, you have the full authority to make your own custom formulas, but we'll give you the guidelines as to what we would recommend as a starting place. So if we are looking to enhance a formula, we want to make something bigger, bolder, brighter, more poppy, then how we would utilize our boosters in our formula is this. So let's start with 40 grams of color cream, just the color cream itself. So maybe we're using shade 7.43, which is a copper gold, but we want it to be a little more copper. So I'm going to add some orange booster. What I would do is I would take my 40 grams of my 7.43, put it in my bowl, and then 25% of my formula, because we're going to go with a 25% guideline, would be 10 grams. So that means I would add 10 grams of orange into my color cream, my 40 grams of my 7.43. Mix that up with a whisk first. Best practice with Ref Permanent Color Cream is make sure you mix all your creams first before adding developer. This will make sure that your formula is truly mixed appropriately. So what I would do is now I have 40 grams of my base color and I have 10 grams of my booster color. Now it's time, we've mixed it up. Now it's time to add our developer. So remember, standard mixing for permanent color is 1 to 1.5. When we're enhancing, we're going above and beyond. We're adding a cherry on top, if you will. So for these formulas, we do not account for the added booster in our developer ad. So we are only adding our developer amount in grams based off that original 40-gram mixture of our base color, right? So we have 40 grams, 7.43. So we'll be doing 60 grams of developer, even though there's 10 grams of booster in there, because we're going above and beyond to enhance. When it's time to neutralize, when it's time to take a step back and turn down the appearance of a certain tonality, we do the opposite. We'll still use the 25% guideline as to how much booster to add into our formula. So for instance, let's say that my shade that I'm choosing is 5.12, but I know that they're going to be exposing a little bit more warmth, and I want to make sure to counteract that. So I want to add a little green booster into my formula. So now I am going to be accounting for that added booster in my developer ratio. So for this, I still want 40 grams total weight of color cream. So I would do 30 grams of my 5.12. I would do 10 grams of my green booster because I'm doing 25%, and 25% of 40 is 10. And then when it comes to my developer, I will still be adding 60 grams, but my booster weight is inside the formula. So that's the difference between enhancing and neutralizing guidelines with booster. As a creative ref colorist, can you add less than 25%? Can you add more than 25%? The answer will be yes, but I always say mix with intention. Make sure that you have your plan and your reasons why to make these different formulation adjustments. Neutral Booster is a beautiful tool that we utilize all the time in ref color. So our Neutral Booster, we also will call clear sometimes in our permanent color cream, has many different uses to it. You can add it to an existing shade to sheer out the level a bit, or sometimes we consider it dropping the deposit level of a shade. Let's say we replace 25% of a shade with clear. That will take that shade down up technically one level, but we'll keep our standard mixing ratio of 1 to 1.5. There are different ways that we utilize Neutral Booster also as very natural highlights to add more of a sun-kissed value, very natural feel to lightened hair. If we take Neutral Booster and mix it like a high lift tint, so that means 1 to 2.5, because our 12 series, we mix 1 to 2.5, and we do it the same way with 30 or 40 volume, process it with 30 minutes, we can get up to 3 to 4 levels of lift, just pure lift on natural hair, which can lend us to have a very, very natural, soft looking highlight. If we do that same formula on previously tinted hair, we can lift up to 1 level as well. Where I personally utilize Neutral Booster with 30 and 40 volume on previously tinted hair is in exceptions when my guests have banding in their hair. And banding can happen for many different reasons. There can just be different changes in season. If we're outside more in the summer and we start going, we're inside more in the winter. When we go back to our natural color, we can have banding, or I shouldn't say natural color, our normal formula. You can have banding because of the lack of exposure to the sun. Hormonal changes, medications, there's so many different reasons why hair can take differently to the same formula sometimes. So we use this to help soften banding. And another way that I use it on previously lightened hair while I'm doing a highlighting service is instead of taking my lightener, which is way more powerful in tipping out and fanning through my previously lightened ends, is I will use this formula to put on my previously lightened ends to really buff out that blonde, clean it up, and make it look beautiful and fresh. I think we have a question, so I'm going to check it out. Is booster extra shot of ammonia or similar? So there is ammonia base in our neutral booster. So you could say that it is adding extra in there because it is a higher level of ammonia than some of our lower levels, than like some of our darker shades. So yes. Oh, sorry, I went really fast through that one. Hold on one sec, guys. All right, there we go. So we're going to talk about one of our last pieces of our permanent color line, which is our pastel colors. And these are some of my absolute favorite, these pastel metallic colors. Now, a lot of colorists will look at these just off the cuff and see the swatches and say, hey, I might not need these because I don't do mermaid hair or unicorn hair, very fashion color hair. However, we love the pastels adding into our formulas to create even very natural looking shades that have extra nuance to them. Or there's a lot of seasonal formulas, like toner formulas coming out that we really lean on utilizing the color pastels to enhance with these. Sometimes I even like using these pastels in lieu of our boosters as a different kind of booster, because the blue booster is going to have a different variance in the appearance than the cobalt will. So sometimes I will also interchange those just to give nuance to my color formulas. Standard mixing, because it's permanent color, is still 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio. With our pastel colors, we wanted to limit the developer choice to 6, 10, or 20 volume. Using any higher of a developer is a little too much of an aggressor for these more delicate pigments. You can absolutely use the pastels as a standalone color by themselves. You will really see them more on pre-lightened hair. If we put them on darker shades, you might get a reflection, but you're not going to see the full tonal value unless the hair is pre-lightened. So know that. We can add them into any existing color formula that we have, like I said, to add nuance, to add certain tonalities to it. So even though your guests might not be begging for mermaid unicorn inspired hair, you can still utilize blush, rose, and some of your cowboy copper colors, some of your pretty rosy colors. If you are having guests that are growing their hair back to natural and they're doing a salt and pepper look, and you're looking for that perfect pepper low light, graphite is our favorite low light when we're doing a salt and pepper look. So definitely lots of options and things to explore to utilize our pastel colors. Talking about Ref Soft Color now. So our soft color is fortified with strengthening quinoa protein. It still has a soothing aloe vera in it. This is an ammonia-free color line though. So permanent, it uses ammonia, and our soft color does not. It is a liquid olive oil suspension, so we do need to make sure we're giving those bottles a little shake before we use them, because there will be natural separation between the oil and the pigment. You're going to get semi to demi capabilities here. So that means you're going to get very soft results up to a like permanent results. Now I said like, L-I-K-E, permanent result, where it's not truly permanent, but you are still going to be able to achieve maximum coverage. Like I've previously mentioned, the shades perfectly match all of our permanent colors, and the variety of uses for soft colors are so many. You can apply them as a toner, a single process color. You can utilize them in foils. They don't slip and slide around. It's really wonderful. When mixed with the developer, it does create a gel kind of cream consistency, but it really does stay put wherever you are using it on the head. And we have our 42 shades plus clear. Right now, we don't have the full 42 because those new ash pearls, we will be getting those, like I said, later this year. But we do have all the other shades available, including the boosters. So when it comes to soft color processing, we want to use 6 volume when we're looking for a semi-permanent effect. So this is where we're going to get the gradual release of the color with a very soft, even no line of demarcation. So we use this during glossing / toning services, gray blending. Maybe we're doing a soft tonal shift on either salon colored or even natural hair. When we want to utilize 10 volume in soft color, this is going to give us our demi-permanent effect, or sometimes I call it a like permanent effect, because it's like permanent, but it's not quite permanent. You are going to get a much slower release of the pigment level and tonalities. You will definitely get a slight line of demarcation up to I will even say midline of demarcation, depending on the level that you're using. When would we like to utilize 10 volume? We utilize it all the time when we're tinting back, doing a filler or pre-pigmentation. Gray coverage on non-resistant gray hair. And yes, this is true. If you mix soft color in 10 volume, and remember, we're just depositing down or going level on level, you process for a full 30 minutes, you can get 100% gray coverage on non-resistant hair. That being said, this is not permanent color. So you are going to get tonal release. You are going to get level release. It won't fully go back to the gray. There will be that demarcation on there, but you will start out with full coverage. This is a wonderful tool, especially when clients are starting to get into the gray coverage world, where maybe they're not quite ready for permanent yet. They don't need permanent because they're not resistant, or if they really do shift between lighter and darker shades throughout the year. Utilizing soft color is a much gentler way to darken hair without having to go through the permanent, having to lift it off to make it go away. And then, of course, all over colors. These are wonderful, wonderful all over colors. Can you do an all over color with 6 volume? Absolutely, you can. You're just going to get different releases and effects depending on which developer you choose. Now, mixing ratio with soft color is a little different than permanent. Standard mixing is 1:1. For full deposit, you would process for 30 minutes. So if we were doing a non-resistant gray coverage or a all over color, right? If we're just freshening up the ends, maybe we've got some permanent color on the outgrowth and we're just glossing up the ends, we can process for 20 minutes. If we're doing a gloss, or AKA a toner, anywhere between 5 to 20 minutes. The difference would be how much level saturation or tonal quality do I need to see. If I'm just buffing out a little tonal value, maybe she's lifted to a 10, and I want to use a 10-1 in soft color, just to kind of buff it out and make it perfect. I can process that for 5 minutes and she'll be great. If I'm dropping levels, or if I'm looking for more vibrance, or if I'm really looking to neutralize an unwanted tonality that's coming through, I will leave that toner on longer to make sure that I'm getting the full deposition for the end result that I'm wanting to use. After any toner, soft color, or gloss process, we want to make sure that we are still finishing with Ref shampoos and conditioners at the final rinse. So when we're looking at our soft color wheel, here is our soft color wheel. So you can see exactly where our shades match up on the color wheel. It's the same as our permanents, but it's a beautiful representation visually of exactly where our shades lie. And again, this is really going to help you when it comes to expert mixing. So we're utilizing soft color for glossing and toning, gray hair blending, low lights, right? If we want to be low lighting, adding some dimension to the surface. If we're doing any kind of shading, root shadowing, right? Root drags, whatever we're calling it this week, we utilize soft color for that. And also, like we mentioned before, pre-pigmentation when we're filling hair, tinting it back to a lower level. So we saw earlier, but these are all the gorgeous shades available in Ref Soft Color. We do have, so you know, in North America, all new color charts that are being shipped out. I will show you are the new color chart that also, I know some of you DSCs are excited, that will also have the new ash pearls in there already as well. For our existing users, if they have the traditional swatch book, they do not have to throw it away, because we are not about waste here at Ref. We don't like that. There are spots in the actual swatch book. If they wanted to create their own swatches with the new shades, they may, and then they can affix them in the swatch book as well. That way they don't necessarily have to reorder or anything. But for anyone that needs a color book refresh, we know how gross they can get. Color book refresh, or are just, maybe opening a new account, we do have the new color charts available. Just an FYI. Getting more back to soft color now, we have boosters so we can fully customize just as much as we can with our permanent color line. You'll notice that the tonal options are slightly different than in our permanent color. You can see the picture of the bottle of our soft colors in the background. We want to make sure that we are using permanent boosters with permanent color and soft color boosters with soft color. That is important. We do not cross paths with those because they are definitely different chemical makeups. But the same rules apply, or I shouldn't say rules because rules aren't made to be broken, but guidelines are guidelines. That's how I like to think about them. So here are our soft color booster guidelines. Friends, they are exactly the same as permanent color. So we're not trying to make you think too hard. We're not trying to overcomplicate anything. So if we're enhancing and we're adding booster to it, we don't account for the booster in our total formula when it comes to the developer ad. When we're neutralizing, we do account for the booster in the developer ratio. So same for permanent, same for soft color. And yes, you can add multiple boosters into a formula if you would like. You don't have to just choose one. You can use more than one in there as well. I will say with soft color usage, about 28 drops, because it isn't a dropper, is about 1 gram. I would go ahead and say that most of us feel free. I still shake my soft color a little bit because I have to, my boosters. Most of us are doing a little pour into our formulas. So if we are adding a booster into our soft color, make sure you have your soft color base color, you add your booster, you mix it up first, and then we add the developer. Same as permanent color. You always want to mix your colors together first before adding your developer. And honestly, friends, that's best practice in every color line, just to make sure we're getting everything mixed exactly perfectly. Let's get into our Blonde ID powdered lighteners because these are such beautiful, beautiful high performance lighteners. Features and benefits of our high lift lightener: you can get up to 9 levels of lift. It doesn't mean you're going to get 9 levels every time. This means you can get up to 9 levels of lift. It's a gorgeous dust-free powder that allows for a creamy texture. There's guar gum and kaolin clay that help with that. Soothing aloe vera. This is so important when it comes to the comfort of on-scalp bleaching. I have had many clients that are bleach and tones, and when I switched years ago from my previous brand to Ref Lightener, the difference in comfort with on scalp lightening was amazing. You still don't go over 20 volume when we're doing on scalp lightening, but it really is such a big difference in the level of comfort with the guest during the bleach and tone process. Strengthening quinoa protein, surprise, surprise. And then we do have anti-yellow molecules for even brighter blonde results. The wonderful thing with, even though our light blue powder, is you can still see through your lightener. So when you're looking at processing, checking your foils, there's not a lot of guesswork there. You can still very, very clearly see the level and the tones that's peeking through. Here we go. Mixing ratio guidelines when it comes to our high lift tint. Hold on, friends. There it is. Sorry, I thought that I had mixed up my Bali, but that's still yet to come. So mixing guidelines with our high lift, it is 1 to 2 standard mixing. I will say, please mix though to your preferred consistency. I know that humidity values in the air and certain things do have effect on how powdered lighteners mix. So if you find yourself going a little bit over 1 to 2, that is okay. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's not until we are really going over that ratio that we might need to make adjustments on our developer. But standard mixing is 1 to 2. Processing time, well, we all know that that's going to vary a little bit, but we do want to try to cap it, especially with high lift tint, around 45 minutes. Depending on how many levels of lift you are going for, you can choose your developer appropriately. I will say this when it comes to developer choice: 10 and 20 get the job done most of the time. And we also use 6 volume in our lighteners as well. So if you want to choose 6 volume with your high lift powder lightener, you absolutely can. It's going to be a little bit less levels of lift, but it will still be a very nice, even, soft lift, depending on what your end result and where you're starting from is. All right. And then we'll get back to, because that chart over there is for our Bali clay lightener. So we'll revisit that in a moment. I wanted to share our formula for our color remover bath that we utilize our high lift tint in. So we have a client, we need to remove some permanent color that they have on there. Maybe we're removing a little bit of direct dye that has saturated and it is on there. This is absolutely okay for the root of the hair. Also for a soft, gentle lift. It doesn't just have to be shafts and ends. But our color remover formula is this. So you'll do 1 part Ref High Lift powdered lightener, 1 part developer. So we recommend 20 volume, and then 1 part Ref Ultimate Repair shampoo. So if you're looking to do a color bath service, this would be our recommended formula. So the 1 to 1 to 1, utilizing our Ultimate Repair shampoo. Our Bali lightener is such a beautiful Bali clay-based lightener designed for open air processing, but not limited to open air processing. With this, you're going to get up to 8 levels of lift, which is really incredible for an open air clay lightener. A lot of them we see capping at about 6 levels. So the fact that we can get to 8 just shows you the power and performance behind the Ref Bali clay lightener. It is a dust-free white formula, 100% vegan, because we're Ref. That's how we do it. Soothing aloe vera. This one's going to have a double dose of the white mineral clay in there. And not only is it going to add so many soothing properties because of it, but it creates a really beautiful crust that allows the product to stay damp underneath. So it continues to process. And that's how we are able to really get to that 8 levels of lift. Because we know lightener stops working and slows down as it's drying. And specifically when we're talking about open air processing, keeping it working is what's really important. So that's why that double dose of kaolin clay is important. And then also the addition of the guar gum is going to help give it that rich, creamy texture that's going to allot for not only the fact that we are be able to place hair right on top of our sections without always having to put cotton or foils or film or anything in between. We can lay it on there because of that beautiful crust that forms right underneath. I have to go back. I apologize because I want to go over the mixing standards for our Bali clay lightener as well. So as you can see, specifically with Bali, when we're talking about open air, we do tend to lean into higher developers as well. Because of the open airness, we need that extra aggressor to make sure that the hair is getting processed. And due to the double shot of white kaolin clay, that also kind of calms things down as well. So you will see we'll see that standard mixing goes from 1 to 1.5 all the way to 1 to 2, depending on your levels of lift. And with our Bali lightener, we do say that the time caps out at about 60 minutes for processing. Just like any lightener, is when it dries out, it basically will stop working. It stops lifting. So depending on the situation that you have in your bowl, in the consistency, this is why paying attention to mixing ratios is important, because we want to make sure that your product is processing appropriately for the amount of time that it needs to get you the results that you and your guest are looking for. All right, so now we're going to round out with direct colors. So direct colors are so fun. They are non-oxidative dyes that add so much character and punch to fashion colors, right? They're not exclusively for fashion colors, but really a lot of the time that's how we're using them. You don't need any developers to use with them because again, they're non-oxidative. There's many different ways that we can utilize them. So we can add so much vibrancy to pre-lightened hair. We've added them to regular custom color conditioners as well. We have our beautiful color boost masks, but let's say we have a client that we did a bright magenta on and they want to keep that color going on at home. You can custom create using a little direct dye with our Ref conditioners to make your own or your client's own custom little color conditioner for at home. We can use direct dyes as overlays or for fashion for repigmentation. A little trick that I was doing for a while with my dark blue blacks. I had a couple clients that wanted a blue black, and no matter how you slice it or dice it in permanent color, It's very hard, near impossible, to get a blue black where the hair looks black and then when the light hits it, it goes blue. So what I did was I just did their regular permanent color with whatever level I was using, usually level 1 or 2. And then after that process and I dried it, I would go over it with a denim blue direct. Let that process and rinse off. And therefore I had an overlay of that blue on that dark. So they were able to actually see a little more of that reflection when the light hit. So overlays are an option also specifically for darker hair because they won't show up as much unless the hair is pre-lightened. But still, they're going to have our strengthening quinoa protein. So even though we're putting these really nice punchy colors on, we're still giving your hair that little dose of the nature's keratin of quinoa as it needs. And then directions for how to utilize our direct dyes. If you want to see the most out of it, we need to put it on pre-lightened hair. Also make sure, depending on what shade you're putting on your pre-lightened, you may need to pre-tone. Because if you don't, the direct dye may act as the toner, so your result might not be exactly what you want. So make sure when we're saying pre-lightened hair, we're not just talking the raw pre-lightened hair, we're talking that nice clean palette that you would like to put it on that will help really support that direct dye that you're adding to the hair. So we like to put it on clean, dry hair because that's how it's going to work its best. We want to make sure that we do not overlap it or touch it to oxidative dyes. So if we are using it on a same head that we've got permanent and or soft color going on, we want to make sure those two don't butt up together because they do have a chemical reaction. The hair is not going to break off or burn or anything, but what will happen is you will get an undesired color on those areas that they touch. So we just don't want them to touch. That's not a ref thing. That's actually just a color thing. So the more you know. We want to process our color on the clean drying hair for 30 minutes. Rinse thoroughly with cool water. Yes, it's a direct dye. We need to explain to our guests that we don't do direct dyes because they're fun and comfortable. We do them because they're bright, vibrant, and really cool, right? They're so cool that we recommend using cool water every time we rinse because that's going to help protect the longevity of that shade. We always tell our guests to avoid prolonged exposure to sunlight because that will break down that direct dye, and especially chlorine. Chlorine levels specifically in the United States tend to be very high. So they can absolutely immediately affect direct dye. So we just want to make sure that we're making our clients aware of that and always use the prescribed ref shampoo and conditioner for longevity. Removal options when it comes to direct dyes, there's many. Some guests want to know how to do it to them just for themselves to help the color come out. We always recommend hot water. We can use a higher pH or sulfate containing shampoos that will pull those as most. We can also go 1-to-1 with 0.00 soft color and 30 volume, and that is a beautiful recipe to gently and softly pull directs out as well. So that would obviously be in salon, but it's just to kind of show you some options on how to start helping the aging process of that color along. And friends, that is it. We have touched on the intro. There's so much more we could talk about, but we would be here all night. The intro to Ref Stockholm color from our permanents, our soft colors, our 2 powdered lighteners, as well as our directs. If you feel so inclined, because you see this wonderful QR code right here, this is for you to give your feedback on how our session was today, just to find out how you feel about it. Because one thing we love doing at Ref is improving, getting better, and bringing you exactly what you want. So it's important for us to know how we can better serve you and your clients. So always feel free to give us feedback on any time you participate in Ref Education. We also very much want you to join our online communities. So you can see here, you can join us on Instagram, Facebook. Some of you might be able to join us on TikTok. I had to invite my daughter over because I deleted it. She didn't. So I had to watch all my organizing videos on her phone. But please join us on there. And as always, on refstockholm.com to get the latest information, learn more about our beautiful brand and company and things that we have going on. And don't forget, we want to see the ref hair that you're doing as well. We want to see those beautiful color formulas. We want to celebrate the great styles that you're doing, the beautiful haircuts. So please encourage your stylists and clients to use our hashtags and tag us in anything that we're putting online. Now, I will leave it open for a moment if anybody has any specific questions, comments, concerns.
Look, you know I'm going to have a question.
Always, Lisa. I love it. It's not a session unless
Okay, back into the permanent color. Okay, when you're going through and you look at the reds and the coppers and the mahoganies, even in the swatch chart, it talks when it says to get excellent grade coverage, it says to mix with the Bahia colors.
003.
Why would it say those instead of the naturals or the intense naturals? Can you just
Yeah, absolutely. So the Bahayas are intense naturals. So they are already 0 zeros. So they are an intense natural. They're an intense natural with just a hint of gold added to them. So it's 90% intense natural and then 10% of that gold. So you're still getting the benefit of the intense natural, but that little bit of kiss of that gold reflex is going to support those reds and those coppers and even those violets in the brighter shade. So if we are doing one of those warmer intense shades, that's where we'd definitely want to utilize the Bahayas collection. If we are doing a not bright color, if we're doing more muted, maybe a little more ashy, then we can just lean on our regular intense natural 0 zeros because we're not looking necessarily to utilize that 10% gold. But that's why, because those are intense for those colors also.
Okay, because it's got the 00, the higher pigment of the natural level is in there.
So
versus the coffee where it's just got the 10, where it's a little more than okay.
Correct. Yep. So you're with it, Lisa. I got to tell you, you are like super dialed into this because 00s are intense naturals, right? So regular and Bahayas, and then like the lattes and the coffees, right? With the 0 in there, there's only 1 0, and that's in just that first decimal placeholder, which means the color reflexes after it are going to be in a lower dose because there's more natural and those have 70% natural in there.
Okay, gotcha. I gotta change my formula next time.
This is why we're here.
I know, right? I gotta change my formula.
Yay! Any other questions? Well, as always, thank you so much, friends, for joining us, especially Jenny Eklund, who has stayed up. It's nighttime. It's quite dark there for...
It's not that late.
What time is it? 9?
It's okay.
Is it 9 o'clock?
It's 20 past 9.
I would be in bed.
I'm just, oh yeah.
Oh, good for you. No, but Jenny, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you today for letting me join.
Yes, of course. We can't wait to have you on so many more of our times together. As always, we are going to be launching our new also global education guide this week with all the distributors. So you'll have access, I know, very exciting. You'll have access to full information. Notice full information also on what it takes to book a class, what kind of materials are needed, who the classes are geared towards. So we can start getting those on the calendar because I know education, we're starting to ramp up a little bit, right? New year, new us, time to refine how we're doing everything. So
this is a question about the new pearls and ash. And I know you got the new swatch book that has them included. Do you think there would be a possibility that when they launch and they come out that they could come with little swatches to add to their existing book?
We don't have those. We don't have those right now. I can't tell you with 100% that we won't, but I can just say right now we don't have individuals to pop in because we do have the new swatch book. That's why I'm recommending, and you know me, I love swatching. I tell all the salons swatch all the time, but you can add them to the other book as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Everybody have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, ladies. Bye-bye.
Bye.